What did you do in the service?
I was in transportation squadron.
Okay.
We moved people and things.
Okay. What kind of things?
School bus for kids,
Okay.
transportation of parts, military parts, plane parts, things of that
So
sort.
all the big stuff.
Well,
Yeah.
and small
yeah.
stuff, you know, drive around a lieutenant,
Yeah.
type thing.
Well, do you have a memorable moment in the service?
Yeah, I could say it was more and more then than it is now. Well, I went in the service in late August, actually early September of 1962.
Mm-hmm.
And most people don't remember that period of time too much unless you were living back then. Mm-hmm. But after going through basic training and getting a short leave to go home before I was stationed at the place that I was going to, which was Eglin Air Force Base in Florida. Mm-hmm. And I arrived in October. That was when I arrived at my station. And back then, in October of 1962, the Russians were moving across to Cuba. And Kennedy was getting ready to put a blockade against them. And where I was stationed was supposedly about 45 seconds from the time a missile would leave Cuba and hit us. We were one of the closest. Plus, I don't know what it is today, but back then, Eglin Air Force Base was the largest military installation in the world. It was huge. It included a huge amount of ocean and Gulf of Mexico because it was a missile range as well. But we knew that if the crap hit the fan, we were number one to go. Well, I was 17, a little over 17 years old. Had no idea that this was even going on. I had no concept of it back then. We didn't have news like we have today. And so when I arrived at Eglin, it was right at the point of high alert. And everybody was like this, because, I mean, it was big. Yeah. A lot of people don't realize how close we came to nuclear war back then. I mean, our ships were in the Gulf and in the ocean and off the coast of Cuba, and their ships were coming in. The Russian ships were coming in, loaded with nuclear missiles. And Kennedy stood there and said, "You're not coming." And they backed down, thank God. But that was my initiation to being stationed at an Air Force base was, anyway.
All right, so let's talk about your teeth. Before you found Adoptive Vet, how was your mouth? How was your dental care at that time?
Well, I was a salesman my whole life, pretty much. And so I made my life with my mouth. Okay. Now, I'll tell you how it all came about. When I grew up, my mom and dad were deathly afraid of dentists. I mean, they grew up in the 30s, the 20s.
Very common.
And back then, dentists just yanked them out, and that was it. And my mother was so petrified of dentists, so my father, that our policy in the family was if you had a toothache, it didn't get filled, it got pulled. So I would be taken to the city. I lived in a small town in Massachusetts. They take us to the city and go to a dentist who gave us gas, put us to sleep with gas. And all I can remember is that, they put that mask on your face. I'd have a really great dream, and I'd wake up with one more tooth gone. And by the time I left home at 17, I was missing pretty much all my back teeth. They had all been pulled. I had wisdom teeth. They didn't find them back when they were pulling my teeth. And so with that, I had a very difficult time from that point forward because dentistry has always been so darned expensive. It is. Even back then, no matter how little it might sound like today, it was expensive back then too. And so little by little, I managed to get bridges and some crowns. And I had one hook tooth that got pulled and replaced with a nice bridge. And it looked really good. I got to tell you that aside from the back teeth, I had the most perfect set of front teeth, tops and bottoms. They were perfect. I mean, clean and perfect, not a space, not a crook, nothing, just perfect. as I believe all of them would have been had they been properly attended to when I was growing up. I have to take the responsibility for not doing much during the time I had them. But over the years, they started having difficulty, falling out, fridges breaking, crowns, etc. So I was approaching about 2008. I was making some decisions about my mouth, and I decided I was going to get implants, the kind where they would put in 4 on the top and 4 on the bottom, and then you could snap on the denture type apparatus. Right. And so I made a decision to have that. So I selected a dentist, and I went in, and we decided we'd do the bottoms first, and then we do the tops later, and we could split up the cost this way. And I said, this is great. So he put in the bottoms, and he made the plate, snapped them in, and my God, they were perfect. I mean, I just was so happy because they were perfect to me. And maybe it could have been better, but they were perfect to me. And I went to the VA, and I was talking to my doctor about how she always asked me, what's with your diet? And I said, what diet? My diet is a chocolate drink. And we got to talking about it seriously. And they said, your vitamins and your intake of those things are low. You're having issues that you're missing out on some minerals. And they said, well, we got to talking about it. And I told them my situation, which I hadn't really ever spoken to them in detail about any of this. But I talked to them in detail about it. My VA doctor said, there's an organization that'll help you take care of that. And I said, really? And I was thinking about you guys when he said it. But I thought, well, maybe they have changed. Mm-hmm. So he got his secretary, brought in a brochure, handed me the brochure, and I took it home. And after about 10 minutes, I called you, because I thought, this could be it. Anytime I was in a private setting, I pulled them out, put them away, put them aside. To leave them in, the lack of taste, the lack of everything, the pain, I just couldn't stand it. I called you guys, and you invited me to come in. Actually, what happened was, this was in March. You invited me in. I came in. We had a meeting. I was like, everything's going to happen. It's all going to happen. We signed the papers. I got an appointment scheduled for March 19th. And that Sisolak came out on March 17th and said, we're closing everything down. Now, I've been waiting, I don't tell you how many years, with so many ups and downs and so many disappointments. I thought to myself, this is about what I should expect. I mean, it hasn't been working so far. So anyway, the appointment on the 19th was canceled.
Is that right?
Time flies so fast, and now. Sure. But it was about a month or two ago that we got the new appointment and went in. And I was so surprised. She's such a professional, put together operation where everybody worked together, and they all had a smile on their face. They were all there to help. And I had 2 doctors that worked with me.
Dr. Roll.
Did about 99% of it, and then one day he was out, and another doctor stepped in, helped out with fitting. Yeah. But I mean, like these people were just so first class. And needless to say that, like I mentioned to you in a letter I wrote to you, that the first thing I did when it was all done was I went home, and I was, like just felt like it was made for a glove on my hand, and couldn't even hardly tell it was there. And I mean, it was just, believe me, this was new. This was new. So anyway, I left. I went home. And I couldn't go out to eat because it was good. If you still had this quarantine going, I got new teeth. I can't eat. Right. So anyway, I called Pizza Hut. And I said, you deliver? He said, absolutely. I said, well, I want a large pizza. I want everything that you've got. I don't care what it is except anchovies. Don't put anchovies on. Put everything else you got on that sucker and get it over to me as quick as you can. And believe it or not, man, I sat there when it came and I mentioned it, but to me it was like looking down at a steak dinner. That's how, I mean, it was been so long since I've had anything that I had to chew. And even just chew a little bit, not because of any other reason than the way the other ones fit, they hurt. They just hurt so bad I couldn't do anything with them. So, happy. What can I say? Yeah, I'm very happy. And,
how much of that pizza did you eat?
Well, I'm not your big kind of guy, but I packed away 3 good pieces of it, and I would typically go through maybe one, 2, but 3 for me was like, okay. England, the only thing I haven't had that I salivate for is corn on the cob.
That seems to be the number one. Well, what has changed in your life since you've completed the program?
Outside of food.
Outside of food.
Outside of food.
Yeah. Being with other people.
Whenever you have dentures, the biggest concern you always have is saying something and having them go out with the words, These fit. They don't, even without anything, they don't pop out. I say the up. I guess the biggest thing in life is being able to speak to people with confidence, knowing that I'm not going to be facing something terribly humiliating. They had a meeting over at the community center in Carson City. It had something to do with who's going to do what or whatever, I forget. But I would have never gone to something like that. I went. People that had a little barbecue, and my wife is in the insurance office, and her family and some friends were having a little barbecue. I went.
Good.
Before I wouldn't even pretend to go, because I didn't want to humiliate the people who went to the trouble of fixing the food, knowing that I wouldn't even touch it. That would, to me, would be a humiliation. It would be an insult to those people. That's the way I think. They wouldn't possibly think that way, but nonetheless.
What does your wife think of your new set?
Oh, she's perfectly. Let me put it like this. Okay, before I would, like I told you before, I'd yank them out, and it became a daily, constant race against time between the time I heard her coming, and I could jam them back in, and half the time, of course, I'd get them about here, and there she'd be, and that's awful, because, as much as they tell you they still love you, it's questionable.
All right, Dennis, I'm going to thank you right here for joining us today, and we really appreciate you coming in and sitting with us.
Thank you.